color and not like that's done.
right. But I do think
DEI is yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Go ahead, sorry.
I think that's all helpful, but I worry that we will just see, more accusations of racism, et cetera, everywhere all the time, as long as Trump is president, right? And all of the derangement that brings. Um, but short of Trump being reelected, I'm hopeful that we have witnessed peak woke, and that the pendulum is swinging back, and that we will have, ultimately we will have more normal institutions and more normal politics, and um, more normal media, and we'll we'll look back on everything that happened on the left as a kind of moral panic, right? In the over the last decade, because I think it was right. I mean, just to remind people. I mean, we have, because we've all been grown kind of numb to the shrieking of the present, but I mean, for the last decade or so, left of center in our politics and in all of our institutions. I mean, the most elite institutions, academia, science, Hollywood, the media, everyone has been acting like not only have we made no progress on issues of race in particular, but this is one of the most dire moments in our history. Like this is this is the emergency is at 11, right now. We're living in an intolerably racist society. This is, after we had a two-term black president, after all the obvious gains that have been made, and after a DEI regime that was instantiated such that it was true to say that in almost any high status job or school or any other perch one could seek in our society, it would be a positive advantage to be black, not a disadvantage, right? I mean, looking at applicants of similar qualifications, right? You would absolutely want to be black applying for that job at the Carnegie Foundation, or that place at in Harvard Medical School or wherever. I mean, it's just been a malignant fantasy to suggest otherwise for years, right? Um, but I do think that DEI has gone too far. I mean, I understand and I share the moral and political impulse to redress the obvious wrongs of the past somehow, right? And the obvious wrongs of the past have a are still with us, right? In some basic sense. I mean, just in economic terms. I mean, just look at the disparities in wealth between white and black families on average in this country, right? There's surely racism and racist policies um, account for that disparity to some degree. But the question is, what to do about that now? What do we do going forward to 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 create a truly just society? And it can't be, and I think for a long time it has been obvious that it can't be, to institute a whole set of racist policies aimed in the other direction, right? Where we're now racist against Asians or white people, or it's just it's obscene, right? It's understandable that we've made these mistakes, but it is, when you look at the details, obscene and obviously unfair and obviously counterproductive, and worse still, and this is truly ironic, conducive to producing more racism, right? I mean, the nightmare scenario is really that you you go to a hospital with some emergency, and the doctor walks in, and he or she is black, and your first thought is, I'm now in the presence of a doctor or a surgeon who is less qualified than most, because I happen to know that the standards of admission to medical school and the standards of promotion through the apparatus of a hospital have been systematically reduced for African Americans for years and years. for as long as this person could have possibly been educated. That is fucking awful to have to think about, right? And that's racism. But it's given the nature of the policies, unfortunately, those are completely rational thoughts, right? And the opposite thought is also rational. If you see an Asian come through the door, you think, okay, this is a person who has been held to unfairly high standards in admission to their undergraduate college, into admission to medical school. We know what Harvard did to the Asians. We know that Asians had to have, score 400 points higher on the SAT to be at parity with black applicants. Okay, this guy or gal is a superstar and I can know that by just looking at the color of their skin, right? That is awful, right? We do not want to live in that world. And so we have to figure out, and so I think we're pulling back from the brink there, and what sort of policies we implement so as to give everyone every opportunity they can make good use of, and we try to mitigate some of the inequities that are obvious at the starting line. I mean, I think a lot of these interventions have to happen as early as possible. They can't happen at the medical school level. They have to happen in preschool, right? But yes, we know the punchline politically. We want to live in a world where the color of a person's skin, or their ethnic background, or their religious identity, or their height, or their the color of their hair, or the color of their eyes, none of this matters, right? We're already there with respect to hair color and eye color, right? Those are not politically salient or morally salient variables. We want everything to be like hair color and eye color, and the question is, how do we get there? The first thing we do to get there is we steamroll over and otherwise embarrass all the imbeciles who think that goal is now illegitimate, and that we want to enshrine identitarian difference for all time, right? We want to make the most of our racial difference for all time. These people exist. Some of them write for the New York Times. They're all morons, right? And we should not listen to them.
Well, let me say, Sam, you made a career. You said before, though, this is purely rational. And that's really everything you've gotten in hot water for and been called names and racist. And Ben Affleck is probably still huffing and puffing from that Bill Maher opinion you did. But what they do is that you try to, and I heard you with Ezra Klein, who, exasperated me. You're making difficult points, which they're rational points. And then they attack you personally in a way which I just think is unbecoming for so many of these people who are smart. That's just a comment. So listen, the prerequisite, I think you'll agree, for a just society, or for the society we want to see, will be pretty easy. I don't know how to get there. Is that at the 6th grade level, you see no drastic differences in the reading and math scores across races. At that point, everything else will take care of itself. Everything will work out. And if you see kids, and we know there's states with like 30 districts where not a single kid can pass a grade level test, what do you expect the outcome to be? So when they're adults, we're going to start complaining that they didn't get the jobs and start putting them but it's absurd, right? All right. Where do you fall on the TikTok issue? I'm going to wrap it up. I got two more quick ones here.
Yeah, I have never. The truth is, I've never experienced TikTok directly. I mean, I guess I've seen TikTok videos exported to YouTube, but I've never had the app on my phone. Rumor has it that the algorithm is amazingly effective and addictive, and
it is. My kids
certainly, it's almost certainly being gamed by the CCP so as to derange us. I mean, again, I've just consumed these rumors from somewhere, but apparently in China, TikTok will just spread one engineering video or otherwise educational video after the other to its population, and in the U.S. you're basically getting brain damage. We were entertaining ourselves to death, and then you get a little fondness for Hamas thrown in there along with the dance videos. I mean, I just think I view it as I think notion of reciprocity kind of cuts through the morass here. The fact that we can't market similar products in China should resolve it. It's like, we shouldn't let China sell anything to us that they won't let us sell to them on some level. I mean, I think that could be a way to just
Sound like Trump.
yeah. I mean, so I think that's it. We have to deal with China in some way, and we have Trump has not been wrong altogether about China. I mean, China has made it a habit to enshrine certain unjustifiable asymmetries between our societies. I mean, they steal our intellectual property, just just it seems to be there for the taking, and they pirate everything that they want. I don't know why we should have ever tolerated that, but it's a I mean, the thing that I mean, this actually has implications for our relationship to Islam as well. There are many places that have there are many societies that have survived based on certain happy accidents. I mean, for instance, there's so many Muslim states that are wealthy simply because they've been able to pull their wealth out of the ground, right? I mean, there's kind of the oil curse, right?
Yes.
They have not had to be responsive to their populations demographically, and most importantly, they haven't had to produce anything of value that the rest of the world wants and will pay for. They don't have any intellectual property apart from these a single book cobbled together in the 7th century, and that they haven't been forced to experience how untenable all that is at this moment in history, right? Because they, again, in the case of the Gulf states, they've been able to pull money out of the ground. In the case of China, it's been we thought we were going to nudge it toward democracy by simply playing nice with it economically for so many decades and helping to lift it out of poverty, which obviously we did. And in that sense, it's a success story, but it's not a success story. It did not become politically moderate the way we expected. So yeah, the fact that they offer cheap labor and pirate everything else is that ultimately is going to be an untenable strategy too going forward, right? We're going to onshore a lot of what COVID taught us that we want to onshore more than we had. The labor is probably going to, if it's not currently cheaper, it might be ultimately cheaper in Mexico or elsewhere. Yeah, I mean, unless China can produce stuff that the world really wants based on their own creativity, they will, things won't be as good for them going forward. So I just think the incentives are such, if you barring the unhappy or happy accidents, like certain countries just sitting on top of vast oil wealth for a time, we need to live in a world where all of our incentives are aligned, and you get rewarded to the degree that you play well with others and produce value in their lives, and where that breaks down and where people are able to game the system differently, I think well-intentioned people need to become more alert to those systems of bad incentives and figure out how to correct for them, right? We should be slow to reward obvious bad actors simply because it may be pragmatic in the near term to do that, right? And we've obviously played a very dangerous and at times very cynical game, like collaborating with people who are clearly bad on the world stage, but because we thought it was a necessity, we did that.
I mean, I agree with everything you said. I'm so reflexively First Amendment and anti, regulating what a private company does. But I have to admit, it scares the shit out of me that there's this pipeline from China into my daughter's brain, especially
Yeah.
now at a time when there's a kind of psychological war against a fragile Jewish psyche for a child like my daughter. I have no real way of knowing, she's 12, how she's interpreting it, how the peer pressure of it all affects her. And to know that a foreign country has this pipeline to her brain and they're using it for geostrategic reasons is not okay with me. I don't know, you know,
Yeah.
just the fact that it's aimed at children, we usually allow much more regulation, much more heavy-handedness when it comes to protecting children as opposed to adults. And this squarely is aimed at children, which is, I think, enough of a rationale to at least overcome a lot of the First Amendment things. All right, can
Yeah.
I get time for one more?
Yeah.